I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Welcome to today's episode, everybody. I am so excited to introduce you to Emily Herbster. She is the owner and face behind Peach and Honey Studios. If you have not seen her stuff, go check it out ASAP. She has cute quilty merch, amazing stickers. She's like the nicest girl in the whole wide world. So go give her some love. And in the meantime, enjoy our chat while you shop.
Try and be on my best behavior.
You don't have to be on your best behavior. That's the best part about this is you don't have to. I'm not on mine.
That's true. That's
I
true.
cuss a lot. I
do. I swear a lot. So I hope that I've listened to your podcast. So I'm like, you swear a little bit. So
I do.
It's funny because I feel like when I first got into quilting, there's like a very, and I don't want to say like stereotypical because I don't think that's the right word, but there's definitely like a very specific niche to quilting. And I feel like I often fall outside of that. Like
Me
I
too.
don't have children. So like I didn't start learning how to quilt because I had a child, so
Yeah.
that's like a huge one. I feel like when people get asked like, oh, why did you start quilting? I feel like a lot of the responses are, oh, well, I had my first child and I really wanted to make them something. Is like super special in its own right,
Yeah.
but I'm like, man, well, that's not me, so
Yeah.
I've definitely felt like I've fallen outside of that. And then also with like swearing a lot,
Yeah.
I feel like you don't often see that, on people's like Instagram stories or anything like that, that people that are in the quilting world, so
Yeah.
I do swear occasionally in my stories and I'm like, I wonder how people feel about it. Are they like upset about it? Should I care about it? Or should I just be being my authentic self, which, I worked in IT for like ever since I graduated, which was 2010. So that's been like what, 13 years. I've been surrounded by men. So
Yeah.
like very much like structured the way I handle conversations sometimes. And I think that's why I tend to swear a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here for it. And like, I'm like you, I didn't start quilting. Like I have stepkids, but I never was like, a birth mom. So it wasn't like I need to nest and make all these things for my baby. Like I started quilting for myself. Like,
Yeah, same.
and yeah, it's like, I think really started this podcast so that people could find community where they couldn't find it elsewhere in the quilting community as a whole. And so slowly I've been starting to find more and more people like you and like the badass quilter, Maddie, if you haven't found her, she's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I feel like the name sounds really familiar, but I don't
Yeah.
think I follow her. So I'll have to look her up after this.
Yeah. She's really great. I actually just interviewed her too. And she's just doing some really kick-ass things and
Yeah.
she's so sweet. But yeah, it's like she's like, yeah, be a badass quilter. Like you don't have to be this like fit in the box, fit in the granny mold of like what people traditionally think of quilting. Like you can be exactly who you are and make really cool quilts at the same time. And you don't have to turn into an old lady.
It's funny because I never thought that I would be a quilter. Like if you told me 4 years ago, oh, you're going to start quilting, I would have been like, there's no way. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? The idea I had of quilts was so like specific to like an older style. You walk into like a traditional quilt shop, like that's the stuff that you're expecting. So one day I was like browsing Instagram, or not Instagram, I think it was Pinterest. And I saw one of Lo and Behold's quilts. And I was like, what? You're telling me quilts can look like this? Like, why did no one tell me this?
Right.
I feel like I'm very much a serial hobbyist. So I've tried everything. And like I've always been like searching to find that one thing that I'm like, okay, I love this. I want to put all my energy and effort into this. And it's taken me so long to find that. And so when I found quilting, I was like, okay, this is it. Like this is my
Oh,
so
I love that. Like what other hobbies did you have before? What have you tried?
I made my own nail polish for a while. So
What?
yeah. I was super big into nail polish. And so I started making my own with like the intent to eventually sell it. But it was just, this is when I was living in New York. So living in a small place, trying to make nail polish, probably not the healthiest choice.
Just like huffing all those chemicals.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, I can't do this because I really don't have like the space to facilitate something like this with that. So gave that up pretty quickly. I tried crocheting. That was not for me. Um, I feel like just knitting I've tried, but I was like I couldn't really get into it. Like I would be so excited to start something and I would get like a quarter of the way through, maybe halfway through. And I'm like, no, like I'm just not finding that enjoyment. And
Yeah.
when I started quilting, like, don't get me wrong, there was definitely like, it probably took me like 6 months, 6 to 8 months to finish my first quilt. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I could whip that out no problem now.
Yeah.
But when I first started, like, it did take me a little while, and then after I made that first one, I was like, "Okay, I'm ready for my next one, like,
Mhm.
I'm ready to go." And I feel like after that, I just totally, like, dove in,
Like
and
broke the seal.
yeah, and I'm like, "This is my thing," like, I feel like I'm gonna be 35 this year, so I'm like, it's
Mm,
taken me this long to, like, find my thing, and I'm okay with that. Some people find it much earlier, some
mhm.
people find it so much later, so I'm like, I'm just very excited to have found something that I'm super passionate about, so
Yeah. And so you took your first quilting class in 2020. So what was that like? What was the class like specifically? Was it to help you make that first quilt or was it just like basics?
yeah, so basically, I saw lo and behold, Pinterest picture, and I was like, "Okay, click on this. I need more information."
Yeah.
And so I started following her on Instagram, and then I saw this was like right when she was announcing her beginner quilting academy course, and I was like, "Okay." I was like thinking about it, and then my fiance ended up buying me a sewing machine for Christmas, so I
Mm,
started making like some fleece blankets, and I was like, this is pretty boring, like this isn't the greatest. So then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sign up for the class, and so I did. Um, and it, like I said, it did take me a couple months because there was definitely, we've moved a lot.
mm,
Um, so there was a move in between, like when I was making that quilt. So that kind of like probably extended it a little more than it would have normally. But yeah, I signed up for that class. I thought it was great. She covers so much stuff. Um, and I was just so excited. I was like, okay, let's go. Made my first quilt. And I look at it now and like, it's so nice to have a reference point of like where you first started.
mhm.
Cause I look back at that quilt, I have it in my living room. I look at
Yeah.
it every day. So
Yeah.
like, this is so nice to see like how much my skills have progressed. I feel like a lot of people go into quilting and like, they're like, okay, I'm gonna make this like perfect. I'm
Mhm.
very much a perfectionist at heart. So
Me too.
what was a little tough because I was like finding all the faults in everything that I was doing. But then when I was done, I was like, holy crap, I made this. Like I made something tangible that's beautiful. It might not be perfect. And like that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
But being able to look at that, it just makes me happy. Like my binding was a hot mess.
Yeah.
So I was like, I look at it and I'm just like still so proud. And I
Yeah.
like seeing like the most recent stuff I've made and just looking at the difference and just being really proud of like the time and the effort and all that stuff that I've put in to just grow this skill for myself. So
That's so cool. Yeah, I sleep with my first like 2 quilts that I ever made. They're on my bed every night and same thing. I'm like, "Oh, that seam's popping. Oh, that binding's coming off." Like,
yeah.
cool. But it's like stuff I could fix if it gets bad enough, you know? And
Yeah.
then the binding on this one, because the one that's hanging behind me is like the 3rd quilt I ever made.
Oh,
And
it
the
looks great.
Thanks. Yeah, from 3 like, it's a 3-foot rule, like, if you get too close, it's, like, a hot mess, but if it's, like, far away, it looks great, and so,
Yeah.
the binding, I accidentally cut it at 2 inches instead of 2.5, and so it's
Spin.
fugly. It's so bad, and I'm like, oh, but, it's like you live and learn, and I can look at that now and go, "Oh my god, I've grown so much just in the last 6 years." Like, it's crazy how fast your skills build when you just keep at it.
100%. And I feel like a lot of people, and I definitely am at fault for being in this mindset of like wanting to start something and just instantly mastering it. Like
Mhm.
I have this like huge misconception in my brain that I'm like, okay, I'm starting something new. I'm just going to knock this out of the park. So I don't often like always give myself enough grace. And I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people can find themselves in that headspace of like, this is just too hard, this is just not looking like what I want it to look like. So they give up. And I'm
Mhm.
like, always, my internal dialogue is like always pushing myself to like keep going. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. Like I think quilts are meant to be loved. So if they're not perfect, like that's just something that makes it unique and
Yeah.
makes it special. So
Yeah. That's what I tell people too, because like I've been, people will bring their quilts for us to long arm and they're like, oh, it's not. I'm like, don't talk about your quilt like that. Like all it
Yeah.
ever did was want to be loved. Like
Yeah.
you made it with intention and you made it for this person or for yourself. And like you're gonna love it even if your points don't match or if you cut off some of your points because you didn't have enough room or whatever the fact, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
you're still gonna love that quilt and it's still gonna get used no matter what. And like those imperfections are just you in that quilt. Like if every quilt came out looking exactly perfect, exactly the same, it would completely remove the human element from it. And
Yes.
it's a very
Totally.
human activity. So,
I mean, it's totally a labor of love, and
mhm.
I feel like when I've sent my stuff to my long armor, I'm always like, "Don't look at the back," you know?
Yeah.
I always see, like, these pictures on Instagram of, like, someone's backing and, like, all the threads are perfectly trimmed. The pressing is immaculate, and
No,
I'm like, "Mine don't look like that," but you know what? Like, once it's long arm, you're not gonna see it,
no
so
one sees it because it's hidden in the sandwich and you can't ever see it again.
yeah,
So who cares? Good for
yeah.
you, but no thank you.
Yeah, and my long armor's like, "Listen," he's like, "I don't judge anyone's, quilts." He's like, "It's really not, like, what I do." So,
No.
"Okay, I appreciate you."
Yeah.
Especially, like, as a new quilter, when I sent my first one out, I
Mhm.
was so nervous, like, and now I look back and I'm like, "I never wanna use my domestic to quilt anything ever again."
Right?
It's so easy to just send something to him, and I appreciate the amount of work that it takes to long arm something. I've been renting some time, at my local quilt shop on their
Mhm.
long arm, and I'm like, "This is a lot to just load the quilt itself, that's a lot of work." You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Holy crap." I'm like, "How does he do this?" And, like, he can load a quilt in, like, 30 minutes or something like that, and I'm over there, like, an hour in, and I'm like, "I think I did this the wrong way." So I'm like, I know it's, like, very much like a learned thing and a learned skill, and I'm like, I just appreciate all the work that has to go in when you get something long-armed. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and as a long armor, like, it definitely, you know, some things just take the time that they take, but there are little bits and pieces that get faster as you go along,
Yeah.
and so that's nice, but yeah, like, I think when you have long-armed your own quilts, and then you get your quilts long-armed, from someone else, that appreciation, I feel like, is there more than people who just are toppers, and then they bring their quilts, and then they're just like, "Well, just do it," and I'm like, "Ugh, do you understand what you're asking?" Like, because there
Yeah.
are some times where it's like, there are certain things about the quilt that make it really hard to long arm and make it
Mhm.
look good because there's too much volume. It wasn't squared up or whatever. And no judgment, but like us at the same time, it's like those things matter. And unless you have loaded a quilt and quilted it yourself, or even on your domestic, like
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference. And so when you have firsthand knowledge of what that takes, then I think it makes a big difference in like knowing what you're asking of your long armor.
I had one quilt that I had made, and it had a lot of, like, bias cuts, so it was, like, very stretchy, and he somehow, like, worked this magic because it was not remotely square, and I'm like, "I appreciate you so much for, like, taking the time to figure out how to make this work." I was like, there was other things I probably should have done to that quilt to make sure that it was more, like, structured and sound, but at the time, like, that was, I'm still, like, a relatively new quilter, so for me, I'm like, this is all just a learning process,
Right.
and I do, like, feel very privileged that I'm able to send my quilts out to be long-armed because I know
Mhm.
that that's something that isn't feasible for everyone, and that's okay. I
Mhm.
think there's like, I went to a quilt con this past year, and just seeing everything on display, there was so much stuff that was just, like, matchstick quilted, and it just made everything stand out so much more. I'm like,
Mhm.
"Man," I really, like, there's so much appreciation just around everything that everyone does, even if it's long-armed, if it's, quilted on a domestic,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's important to talk about because I feel like long arming is so popular and it's like, oh, just send it, just send it. Not everyone can afford to get their stuff long armed. And so I'm like
Yeah.
very grateful that I can do that for myself, but there definitely is a lot of beauty in quilting something yourself too.
Yeah, for sure. And people do amazing things on their domestics. It's like if that is what your tool is, then master that and make it, make it what it is, or, make it what you can make it with what you have. And I think that is something about quilting that's so great, is that you can get in to it for relatively low stakes. Like you don't have to have a super expensive machine. You don't have to have a super expensive long arm machine. Like you don't have to have a long arm period. Like you can do it all from your domestic sewing machine, and it can be so beautiful and stunning and win awards, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, you know, a high stakes thing.
Yeah,
But
I watched so many people who are into free motion quilting, and I've like not opened that door yet and gone down that path, but I watch them and I'm like amazed every single time. I'm like, I don't know how you do this and your stuff looks so good.
mhm,
It's amazing to just watch that stuff. And even with like custom quilting on the long arm, that's like I could watch those videos for like hours and hours of people doing that because it's just so amazing.
mhm.
I'm like, that's so much talent and time and effort that this person has put in to get where they're at. I feel like that's not just something you can like pick up in a
No,
day, you
it
know?
takes so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't do free motion custom, because we can set up custom like motifs and
Mhm.
designs and stuff with the computer on our machine. But yeah, I get sucked into watching people long arm too. Anyway, yeah, it just takes a lot of time and skill, and
Yeah.
having like the right machine for it. Cause like the machine I have is so heavy, and it's really great at doing computerized design and custom work that way through the computer. But to do free motion is like the loops and swoops and meandering is totally fine, but if I were to try to go custom, like super tiny detail, I couldn't do it. I've tried and tried and tried, and it's just like, she's so heavy. Like,
What kind of
Mildred, why are you
programs
so
do you
heavy?
have?
We have an APQS Millie 30,
Okay.
so the biggest machine that APQS sells. So they have smaller ones that would be fantastic for free motion long arming like that, but that's just not that's not the business that we set up, which is fine. Like it leaves room for those custom quilters to have, you know, have jobs or whatever. I don't know. Not that that's like single-handedly what I've done for the community, but like I've left space for you. Sorry, I'm talking
No, I
about it
know,
like
I know what you mean. I just actually booked my first custom quilt with someone.
"Mm,
So I'm getting that ready now. And I'm just like so excited to
yeah.
get something custom quilted because I've never done that before. So I'm like, I have no idea what to expect, but I'm so ready.
Yeah.
And there's just so many talented people out there that I'm like, okay, you're on my list next. You're on my list.
Right? I
Yeah.
know. I know. It's like I think too, it feels hard to like, because there are so many quilters and like long armors out there. It's like, oh my gosh, there's all this competition. But then at the same time, I'm like, we're so busy. Like, it's obviously still a large need in the quilting community as a whole, that like, we're busy. Other long armors are super busy. And I think, I think the more kind of in home or like smaller businesses that pop up that can do it, the better, because like, you know, quilt shops, like proper shops, can only do so much. Like they can't do custom, they can't do, you know, time consuming jobs because they've got the queue to keep up with, and they have to keep quilts cranking through their shop instead of, whereas, like I can take the time to set up a custom design with somebody, and or a
Yeah.
custom free motion long armor, they can really, that's their purpose, is to take the time with your quilt and really make your art stand out with their art. And it's a
Mhm.
true collaboration. So,
Yes.
um,
I was just gonna
anyway.
say that it feels very much like a collaboration anytime I've gotten something long armed. Like it's just such a cool idea and like process of like, okay, my quilt has gone through this like life cycle of me piecing it. And then I had help from my long armor to like make this vision come true. And it's interesting, like when I often get quilts back from being long armed,
Mhm.
I'm always like, oh my gosh, this looks like there's like this whole different dimension that that wasn't there when I sent it. And now I got it back and I'm like, it's like it has this whole new life to it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it, like, gives it a personality almost, like
Yes.
yeah, it's so fun, and then when you have, like, a great relationship with your long armor, like, there's nothing better because it's like you can try like, give them your quilt and know that when you get it back, it's gonna be exactly who it's supposed to be, like, as if it's a person, but, like,
Yeah.
it's gonna have, like, the feeling and the life in it that you want from it, and so, like, I I made a solo episode a while back about, like, what how to prep for long arming, and a lot of
Yeah.
people messaged me back and were like, "Thank you so much for this, like, I'm a long armor and you put it so well," or like, "Thanks, now I know how to better communicate with my long armor," like,
Yeah.
I think there's a real want and desire out there for quilters and long armors to like really have that relationship because it is truly a relationship. So I love that you found that because it is
I'm like so obsessed with my long armor and I don't mean to like talk about him the whole time.
no.
He's just he's been such like an amazing resource for me just in quilting in general. Like
Yeah.
literally text him all the time. And I'm like, "Hey, how do you do this?" Or "What would you do in this scenario?" And like he always gives me the best advice and I just cherish the relationship I have with him so much. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, I don't even know if I didn't meet him, like, would I even have gotten a quilt long armed by now? Like, I don't know, you know? So
Yeah.
it makes me sad that people don't have that because I truly have like the best relationship with him and
Yeah.
it's has helped me grow so much as a quilter.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, like, so important to have those relationships, whether it's your long armor or just another quilter around that you can ask because, yeah, I, like, thankfully have my mom to lean on or my besties because they all quilt also, and I, you know, have made pretty good relationships at the local quilt shops here, but
Yeah.
just having that person that you can be like, "I'm stuck, I don't know how to fix this," and just text them, and they're like, "Oh, just do this," and you're like, "Oh, thank God." Like I'm not stuck, like, I have resources to rely on, so that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like I'll literally ask him like, "Hey, how do you finish your binding, this way? Like, what do you do in
Mhm.
this scenario?" And he'll be like, "Okay, let me send you a quick video or let me FaceTime you." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for you." Like, I
Yeah,
just having like that community, like he's very much a huge part of the community for me. And I
yeah,
think sometimes that's hard for people to find,
mhm,
and I get it. Like finding your people is definitely tough. Especially if you find yourself falling kind of outside of the typical like niche of quilting,
mhm,
it can be a challenge. And so I found him and I was like, okay, I was like, I love you. You
yeah.
helped me so much. And it's so funny because we actually just met in person at QuiltCon
Mm,
and walking around with him, everyone was like, Orlando, Orlando. Like everyone loved him and knew him. And
oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
he's just such a great human.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's
that's
it's
so
it's
cool.
nice to see like everyone else having that same experience with him too.
Mhm. You're like, "Oh, it's not just me, like, he's that for a lot of people."
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You're not like it is kinda nice to see that too, because it's like you might like, especially if you're, like, not person to person with somebody, it's like, are they really this way? So then meeting them and seeing that, like, oh, it matches up is, like, such a relieving feeling of like, "Oh, good, they are this person for real." Like, I've put my trust in somebody who is a genuine human, like, they're not
Yeah.
pulling the wool over my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And he is like 100% is who he is and shows up every day like that. And I'm like, I
Yeah,
just adore him. So
that's awesome. Is that where the inspiration for your sticker, the "I love my long armor" sticker came from?
literally, yes. Yeah,
I was like, "Oh my god."
because I had no like plans to like get into selling stickers or anything, but with like the idea of going to QuiltCon, I was like, I want to have something that I can hand out to people because in social situations, I'm like very quiet. I
Mm,
don't always seem like the friendliest, but it's just because I'm shy. I'm like a little shy. So
yeah,
I'm maybe if I have these and take these with me, it's like an excuse for people to like come say hi and vice versa. So we can like swap stickers and
yeah,
maybe it like helps break that ice. So then I was like, okay. I was like, it's important for me to have some on my website because I know that like majority of people aren't able to go to QuiltCon, right? Like
mhm,
I
yeah,
want them to be able to have a way to get these too. So I listed them on my website and I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. But yeah, I was brainstorming some ideas and I was like, I need to have I love my long armor sticker because it's true.
It's so cute. I freaking love it. I was like, "Oh, I love this." Like, I am my own long armor, so I could buy it for myself, but
That's
no, but I did recently order some stickers because you have the quilting is for everyone sticker, and, my bestie Jen, her birthday was at the beginning or no, sorry, at the end of this month. I can't talk. Her birthday is at the end of March. There we go. And so I saw that and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I want that sticker." And then I was like, no better time to order 4 of them so me and my besties can all have one. And so I waited until her birthday to give them to like everybody, like pass them out. And they all were like, "Oh my God, yes." And we like immediately put them on our machines because we were having a sewing party, obviously.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, I'm
and
so
so
jealous.
yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad they love them.
Yeah, they were like, "These are so stinking cute," and, like, yeah, they're all big advocates for LGBTQIA equality, and, so we were just like when I told them, like, "No, these stickers go to support," they were like, "Oh my god, yes, thank you so much," and they were just, like, immediately on our machines, and we were, like, ready to quilt. It was so nice.
Yeah. So I work for a retailer that also donates a lot to the Trevor Project. And
Okay.
like thinking about, the stickers I want to make and kind of just like the outlook that I have on quilting, I was like, I really want to make something that like is just welcoming for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it. And as I was like getting ready to list the stickers on my site, I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just feel like I have to do something different with this one. And it would
Mhm.
be an amazing thing to just take all the profits that I get from this sticker and be able to donate it to the Trevor Project because they're just such an amazing organization.
Mhm.
They had presented at my work, I think it was like a year ago. And just kind of the stuff that they talked about. Like I was in tears the whole time. Thank goodness this was like a remote thing because I would have been sobbing if it was in person, but it was
Yeah.
just amazing to just hear, the vision that they have for the Trevor Project. And for people who
Mhm.
don't know, what the Trevor Project is, it's basically like a whole group of people that are dedicated to helping out, LGBTQIA, the community and providing resources and a hotline, so if you're
Mhm.
ever struggling, you can call into them and they can kind of like walk you through different things and be there to support you. And that just, it's always been a subject that I've cared about literally ever since I can remember. And so I'm just happy that I'm able to be able to take these stickers and donate that money.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, that was like not only are they stinking cute and good quality, like, I was so excited about, like they're just, like, nice. They go on so nice, they're thick, and they don't feel like they're gonna just peel off, but, um, just, like, knowing that I can get a cute sticker and that it's gonna go to help a cause that I, you know, I wholeheartedly support. It's like, "Heck yeah, let's" you know? I know it's like sometimes it's like, "Oh, yeah, but you're just donating so you can get something." It's like, I mean, yeah, but also, like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not, like, help your business and support them at the same time and get something cute from it? Like, you know, it's like, I know I can just donate, but also I wanna show that I did donate. Like, I want people to ask about it and be like, "Oh my gosh, where'd you get this sticker?" So then I can say, "And you can get one too, and you can go donate, by purchasing this sticker from this really cute girl."
Yeah. I mean, I just like when I was making the sticker, I was like, I didn't feel right profiting off of it, like, period. I was like going back and forth and I'm like, I don't know. For me,
Mhm,
it just doesn't feel right. Like quilting is very much a hobby for me, although I would love to see it eventually transition into something bigger.
mhm.
I was like, I just, this one just feels different. And I just felt like going the donation was like the right thing to do. And so I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad that other people have been buying it and, helping me be able to make these donations too. That's half of it, right? I could say
Yeah.
I can make these donations, but if no one's buying it, be able to, to do that. So, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hopefully more people buy it now once they hear this because it's so cute, and
thank you.
yeah, I just
I
want
hope
everybody to buy your stickers.
I'm like, I need to do some actual like marketing for it because I've not really posted anything on my feed. I've
Mm,
talked about it in my stories a little bit and, posted a little bit about the Trevor project, but I'm like, I need to get on it, but
mhm.
it always feels like there's a million things to do and
Yeah,
I'm always somehow behind.
me
So
too. Me
I'll
too.
get to it. I'll get to it one day, I hope.
Yeah. I planning content is like my weakest point in just my business as a whole. So I think hopefully eventually one day I want to be able to hire somebody to help me, but like right now I literally do everything. So I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
how people have time for this. And I'm like, oh right, they hire teams. Like that's
Yeah.
how.
Scheduling content, I don't know. It's hard for me too. Like I I don't know if it's like I've been diagnosed with ADD since I was like super, super young. So
Mm,
for me, I'm like, when I come into like my space to work on stuff, I feel like I have to just let myself work on whatever's pulling me towards that project.
yeah.
So for me, I feel like when I step outside of like, okay, well, I have to get this done, like I need to do this, somehow like the joy just isn't there. It
Right.
just like slowly disappears. And then I'm like, "Ugh, why am I doing this again?" So I feel like with scheduled content, it's really hard for me to get on board with it because it just feels like too forced and too like rigid for me, where I'm like, this is my happy bubble and my happy space of like where I get to have a good time and like just think about all the great things that are happening and the cool things I'm making and seeing everything else that everyone's making.
Yeah.
This is very much like my happy bubble, but I
Yeah.
understand that there's like very big realities outside of that and topics, especially in quilting that like deserve to be talked about. So it's hard, but scheduling content, I feel like when you're running a business is probably a good thing. It's just it's just hard.
Yeah. It's like, well, I also have to do the bookkeeping and I also have to take care of invoicing and I also have to take care of actually making the quilts and quilting them. And I also have to go buy all the stuff I need. And I also have to, it's like, when in there am I gonna make content, you know? And it's just, it's tricky, but for the people who can
Separate role.
accomplish it, good for you.
I know my one friend, she like schedules her stuff a month out.
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't know how you do this. Like, I'm amazed by her when she's like showing me everything she has scheduled. And I'm like, can you do this for me? Because like I
Right?
can't, yeah, I can't get on board with it. But some
Yeah.
people love it. And I'm like, I'm proud of you, like
Yeah.
amazing that you can set aside the time and like really have enough content to have scheduled. I think that's something I struggle with too, is like
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm like a slow quilter or a slow sewer, but I often feel like Instagram very much gives like this idea that like people are just whipping stuff out so fast.
Right?
And maybe they are. And but I feel like that's very much like the main thing I see. I'm like, oh my God, another finished quilt.
Hmm.
I'm like, geez, I'm still working on my quilt that I've been working on for like a month now. And this person's has like two finished and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
see. More
It's
power to
bonkers.
them, but
Yeah. No, for sure. And like, and I think you're right. The whole social media aspect kind of makes time feel like it is sped up because it's like I look at things and I'm like, didn't that person just have a baby, but they're celebrating their first birthday? It's like just little things like that that I'm like, wait, what? How did so it's like maybe perception wise, it's not going as fast as we think it is, but I also do think that people have stuff behind the scenes already done so that when they present it, it like comes across like they've done something so quickly. Whereas maybe they spent a few months making those two quilts and then just when it's like the timing of releasing of everything. And I know I see like, content creator coaches be like, oh, you need to just set aside a day and make a month of content in one day. And I'm just like, I don't know how to do that.
see, but what's interesting is I feel like quilting can't fit into that box of like
No.
take a day and make a month's worth of content. Like we would have to have like 5 people with us to working on the same quilt. You know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
really be able to make that much content. So I feel like, and I think this kind of is probably relatable to other artists and like different art forms,
Mhm.
is art, like our art just takes time. And
Yeah.
Instagram isn't built to, we're not built to keep up with Instagram, and Instagram just, you know, it's just go, go, go. So
Mhm.
it feels like an impossible task of like always staying on top of everything and like having all this stuff done and ready and everything picture perfect. It can be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
So, like I always just try to remind myself like, okay, I'm doing this because I love it and because I enjoy it. I don't have to have, posts every day. I don't have to even post every week. A
Mhm.
lot of stuff I do talk about like in my stories and giving
Mhm.
updates there, I feel like works for me. And it doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be something on your feed, but I get that it very much feels like that. And I know a lot of my friends that I talk to very much feel that like pressure, and it almost like stops them from creating. Sometimes
Mhm.
I feel like they're like, it's too much. I'm never going to be able to, keep up with this. And
Yeah.
making reels is so hard. And, you know, just having constant content, it just feels like very impossible. So I'm like, no, I'm like, just do what's making you happy and
Mhm.
just post what you have. Like the idea of it being perfect and picking a trending audio and using the right hashtags and posting at
Yeah.
the right time where Instagram may love you that day and like push your reel out to more people. It's like you're kind of up against a losing battle. So just do what you love and the people will find you, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's it too, is like you get in this rat race of thinking that you have to do things a certain way. The algorithm. And I'm like, fuck the algorithm. Like, just post stuff when you have it and don't post if you don't have it. And like, I think it does end up killing the joy for a lot of people because they're focused on making content instead of like working on their hobby or their craft, or even if they've turned it into a business. Like,
Yeah.
and then the burnout happens and it's like, no, this is supposed to be something that like is a like rescue from the burnout, like is a place where you can relax and feel accomplished and just work on something that makes you happy. And even as a business, it's like I get to pick and choose what I take on, and if I don't want to make a quilt for somebody, then I don't. Like, if it looks like something I'm not interested in doing, then I'll just say, "I'm so sorry, I can't do that right now." And I know that sounds crazy, but like why would you turn away business? Well, because I get to. Like, I I think sometimes there's a lot of revolutionary things happening in workplace, like, and even with owning your own business, like entrepreneurship. But I think there are a lot of old thought processes still connected. And so that like you always have to be producing, you always have to be creating, you always have to be pushing something out and like work yourself to death. And I'm like not here for it. So, and I like push my mom too, because she's running a business with her is great and it's so fun, but it's in her house. And so I think sometimes she feels like she has to always be working. And I'm like, lady, this is your home as well as where we run our business. It doesn't mean that you have to be doing business 24/7. Like, give yourself a weekend, take your evenings. If you want to sew for yourself, do that, but don't work. Like, I'm not working when I go home. So it's like, why are you putting the pressure on yourself? But it's just that old thinking of just like, you owe the world something because you made a business, and so now you're the slave of your clients. But really it's like, no,
Yeah.
you get to make your own boundaries and you get to decide what you do and don't do. And I think the more like, it's that authenticity piece again, right? Like, I authentically show up as myself, and myself has boundaries for my time and what I can and can't do. So
Yeah.
anyway.
No, I think it's important because I feel like there's been certain like situations where I'm like, I want to say no to this, but I feel like so obligated to say yes. And I'm like, why am I like this? Like it's okay to say no, like, no, I can't, fit that in, or, no, I'm just not interested, and my sister's been trying to get me into the mindset of just saying like, no,
Mhm.
you don't always have to provide like this long explanation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how have I not realized that you can just be like, oh no, no, thank you. You know?
I can tell you, so as a fellow ADD person and anxiety sister. Like, it is a huge, like, indicator of, like, ADHD, ADHD, and anxiety of just, like, over explaining yourself, being so worried. It's like people pleasing, and you're trying to, like, fight that, like, disappointment of, like, feeling like you've disappointed someone else, but also feeling disappointed in yourself. Like,
Mhm.
I've had to fight it too, like, hard. And so even the fact that I am okay with setting boundaries in business has, like, been so crazy, and that I'm pushing my mom to do the same because she, again, like, I learned it from somewhere, and, you know, she's like, "Oh, I never realized I have no boundaries." I'm like, "Weird, neither do I." But
You're just like, yes, I want to help you. Yes, I want to, do all these things.
yeah.
At the same time, like you have to protect yourself, your time, your space, all that stuff
Mhm.
is so important. So it's definitely a learning lesson for me. Like I'm still very much learning, how to say no. And
Oh,
especially
yeah.
when it comes to like pattern testing. I'm like, I would love to test for you, but like so much time and like the schedule for me, like anything that's like rigid, I'm like, you know how many sew-alongs I've signed up for and never done I've not even gone past the picking out the fabric stage. So I'm like, anytime I sign up for something, I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to work around that right now. So like for now, I'm just saying no.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of was in the same boat where I was testing a bunch for Katerina Rochella, and, like, I did a I say a bunch, I think in total it was like 5, 1, like, say 1, 2, 3, so I guess 4 patterns, but it was just like one right after the other, and, like, the first 2 I did full quilts, and then the last 2, one I just made 1 block from the whole quilt because it was just like a repeating, like,
Yeah.
once you made the block, that, like, idea just repeated throughout the whole quilt. And then the last one I did was I just did the baby version because I was like, "I can't commit to making a huge quilt," because the first one was fine. I did fine on the timeline, but the second one was so much bigger. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think she called it a throw size, but it's like 80 by 90 or something, like, it's huge. And so, but I was, like, up against the wire on that one, and I was like, "Oh my god." And so then I was like, "Well, I'll just do the smaller ones," but then that made me go, "Oh, I've got more time because they're smaller, so I don't have to, like, be as, like, on it." And I was like, "That's not fair because I'm supposed to be helping her, but at the same time, like, I'm just, like, failing in that because I'm so far behind everyone else. They're, like, posting finished tops, and I'm still like, "I'm still sewing my blocks together." Like,
Yeah. And then you get like this like sense of guilt where you're
mm,
like, oh my gosh, like I'm not able to do this for them on time. And then you just feel bad. And
mhm.
it's hard. Testing is not easy. Testers deserve a lot of love, you
They
know?
do. Yeah, it isn't easy because you're not just making a quilt, you're combing through the directions. You're back and forth with the group and the creator, and you have to be mindful of what you're doing so that in taking notes while you're going so that you can, pass that along. And that for me would just became too overwhelming. And so I just had to be like, "I'm so sorry I can't do this right now." Like, if I get to a point where I feel like I can, then I'll jump back in the group. But
Yeah.
it was fun, and I'm so proud of the quilts I made, and they're beautiful, and the patterns are amazing, and really easy to follow, which is so nice, but I'm just like, I can't do it.
It's a lot. And I feel like there's very much like this like people pleasing element to, getting this stuff done on time. Like you want to make people happy and you want to say, yeah, I would love to do that for you.
Yeah.
And so that's been something like I've been trying to, mentally work through as well. Um, I had talked a little bit on my stories about like a very controversial topic. I mean, I don't know if it's controversial, but for me, it was just like an everyday, like it's just another day of me talking about quilting stuff on my stories. Like it wasn't anything like, oh, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna say this because I want to stir the pot. No, it's just me being me. And
Mhm.
I had talked about like memberships and classes and referral codes and you know the whole idea kind of like talking about quilting and reels and keeping up with Instagram like I feel like we constantly are putting ourselves like, this is the industry standard. So let's force ourselves to fit into that box and let's do everything else that everyone else is doing because that's what everyone else is doing. And my whole thought was like, why? Quilting is so different. Quilting is a long process. It's a labor of love. Like, you know, having memberships, I think can be great. And I think some memberships are great. And
Mhm.
I think the main issue for me was like, how do you find that information to know, like, is this course worth it when people are pumping out referral codes? Like, how do I know that that feedback is authentic and genuine and that I'm going to get what I need out of this class because people are just trying to make money off of the referral code? And
Mhm.
so people were very upset with me that I was
Really?
very upset with me that I was talking about this. And it kind of like put me in such a weird mental space because I was like, people are like, I've never had my stories viewed as much as that time. And so I was like, people are obviously talking about it. I had people messaging me. I probably got over like 100 DMs.
What?
Yes, it was so crazy because, like I said, to me, it was like just another day of me talking on my Instagram about quilting, like I do all the time. And
Mhm.
so to kind of get that feedback and see that people like a lot of people were supportive, and then there were some that weren't so supportive, which is fair. And my whole thing was like, I get that everyone has an opinion, and I'm not saying mine is right. I'm just putting my opinion out there.
Mhm.
And the reason why I felt like it was important for me to put my opinion out there is because I know there's so many other people feeling the same way I do, and they're just scared to talk about it. And I think like having constructive conversations is hard, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it's hateful. You know what I mean? And a lot of people were like taking it to this extreme, like they're coming on my page, they're seeing, a 2-minute video of me and they're making a judgment based off of what I'm saying about,
Mhm.
a subject that I've like tried to tread so carefully talking about because I wasn't trying to be mean. I wasn't trying to be like, this person sucks because they're
Right.
using the code. I'm like, no, for me personally, like looking at a class and being like, okay, this class is expensive, like, whatever class it is, that's an investment that you're making in yourself. And
Mhm.
it's hard to figure out, like, am I making the right investment? Like, is this the right, learning style? Is this the right teaching style that I need? It's just really hard to find those resources. And it was just a wild time. And the whole people pleasing thing, like, really got to me because I was like, I can't believe people are like, mad about what I said when I was like treading around the conversation, like, so delicately. And I was
Mhm.
like, man, this just like really sucks. So, like, I just feel like I've made people mad expressing how I feel about something.
Yeah.
It's been like hard to deal with because I I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of it was me being genuine, me being curious, me putting myself out there, and it
Mhm.
wasn't to like gain attention or stir
Right.
the pot. Like I said, I'm like, I want to speak up for the new quilters that they look at this class that's $1,000 and they're like, for me to be able to afford that, that's like a a huge deal, but it,
Right.
it's just a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think, there are some, like you said, there are some memberships or some subscriptions or some things that are definitely worth it. You get your money's worth for sure. But there
Yes.
are some things out there that it's like, yeah, like people are just pushing it because, yeah, they're going to make money off of it or they're going to get some kickback for it. And I know that that's how like capitalism works. But like, do we really have to turn the quilting community into that as well? Like, I feel like, again, that it is supposed to be like a respite. It's supposed to be a creative outlet. And so when we bring that capitalism aspect into it and just start forcing, you know, codes and selling people constantly, like force it down their throats, like it loses some of that shiny like feeling of like, oh, I feel really good about doing this, or like, oh, I feel really good about, being a part of this situation. It's like
Yeah.
you have to be just like in anything else, you gotta find your people and align yourself with the people who, you know, share share your beliefs, and it's okay that not everybody does. Like, I'm not saying that everybody has to be on the same page all the time because that's just not reality,
Yeah.
but to then like jump down somebody's throat because they're expressing their genuine thoughts and feelings, like that's a them problem ultimately. Like maybe felt called out. Maybe they don't necessarily feel good about what they're doing. And so hearing somebody say, I don't like this makes them feel even guiltier. So then they're going to try to make you feel bad. It's like there's a ton of reasons why those people could be complaining about you complaining.
It
But
was it was weird and just like very it like fumbled into this very unexpected like conversation in my DMs, and I'm like, I wish more people would talk about stuff like this because I feel like
mhm.
constructive conversations are okay. They're okay to have, you know?
Yeah, and they are uncomfortable, just like you said, like, I think that's another problem that people have is we've gotten into this zone of, like, you can't say anything, you can't argue with people, you can't stand up for yourself, even though, like, it's like a two-edged sword because, like, on one hand, it's like, yes, speak up, like, live in your truth, whatever, but then the minute you do and someone doesn't agree with you, then they want you to shut up. It's like, well, you can't have it both ways, like, you're gonna feel uncomfortable sometimes if you're hearing someone's truth and it resonates in your body for some reason, like that's something for you to maybe look at and explore. Like, why does this make me uncomfortable? And so, if we're going to grow our society in the sense of like not being the like, no, just stuff the feelings, don't talk about them. Like, if we're going to expand and grow our consciousness and be more open and more vulnerable and ultimately more accepting, then like we have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And like,
It's so true. Like, I just feel like the times I've taken classes, like I've had no problem sharing my experience and letting kind of like the class speak for itself. Like,
yeah.
and I just wish other people would give that room for people to be able to do that naturally. Cause I feel like if what you're putting out there is good, it's going to be, the feedback is just going to reciprocate, it's just going to
Mhm.
be like this circle of like evolution, like, oh, I took this is what I was able to accomplish by taking this class, and like this is what I've learned. And there
Yeah.
are some classes, like I said, I took a class to learn how to quilt because it was something that was bundled up nicely for me to intake as much as I wanted to when I could, and
Mhm.
always refer back to that. And that worked for me, and I
Yeah.
like that. And I very much liked the teaching style of Brittany, and she did a phenomenal job with that course. So I'm like, I just wish people would let it speak for itself. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I feel like we're very much as a society, like, not to I don't want to go into politics.
No.
Like, it's very much like, okay, you're one or the other. Like
Mhm.
there's no you're either this or you're either that. And it's
Mhm.
like, why can't we have conversations to like maybe meet in the middle somewhere? Like I respect your opinions and about, quilting stuff. And like it's okay if yours aren't the same as mine. Like
Right.
that's what makes it beautiful. Like I love to hear other people's opinions and knowing that we're not all the same. We don't ingest information the same. We don't learn the same way. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. Like there's room for all of us to be exactly who we are and consume how we consume and also present ourselves how we want to. Like and it is uncomfortable sometimes. And that's okay because I think we've all grown up in certain ways and we've all had certain exposures to whatever life is wherever we're at that moment, but like that doesn't mean that nothing else exists or can exist. And yeah, same thing with quilting. Like I love hearing what people do that's different than what I do because I know I don't know everything. I don't know jack shit compared to so many people. But like I'm here for it. I want to hear everything. I want to know how differently you do your binding or how you know whatever, I don't even know, like piecing techniques and different things because I know I don't know it all. And and I think it just takes that step of like stepping back from your ego and saying, it's okay that I don't know everything. I'm not stupid. It doesn't make me bad. It's like morally neutral.
yeah,
And I think unfortunately for our society, we've viewed like the idea like I've talked about it a few times, but um I don't know if you've heard of Vivian Kaye, but she is like an entrepreneur, and she does like coaching for business, small business, and she's freaking hilarious. So if you don't follow her, you should go find her. But she talks about her, like she trademarked the phrase, "What would Chad do?" And it's like if a mediocre white man can walk into his boss's office and get the job that you are overqualified for and he's underqualified for, then you can go ask for it too. Like it's just that idea that like we look up to, or used to, I guess, not all of us do, but people have looked up to like the people who walk into the room and act like they know everything
Mhm.
instead of like honoring and valuing the vulnerability of somebody to say, I know some things, but I don't know everything and I'm willing to learn. And I think that to me, with the people I'm trying to surround myself with, like that is high on their value list versus the audacity of a white man.
It's funny because
So,
like you can take something like very specific, like binding.
mhm,
Like there's a million different ways you can do binding. And when I first started, I thought, okay, there's one way. Like this is the one way that I learned. So this is how I should do it for the rest of my
mhm,
quilts, right? Like, no, there's so many things. Like I have the simplicity bias tape maker,
mhm.
and you like, pop your fabric through and it folds in half and irons it for you. Like there's so many, I know there's so many things that you can like do differently when it comes to binding. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is one tiny aspect of like finishing your quilt, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a million different ways to do it, and everyone has their preferred way. And
Mhm.
it's just cool to see the different ways that people do things. And I think that it's just important to be like open to people and them being different than you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think ultimately that's like what I want from the quilty space is like for everybody to just open up and let everybody in and at whatever level they're at and whatever skills they have, like just welcome them with open arms. What is it going to hurt? You know, like
I think for
it's,
me, like having social media, my like main goal is to inspire other people to start quilting,
mhm,
because like that's how I was like, okay, this looks cool. Like I want to learn how to do this. And I just want to do that for other people because I feel like quilting can be such a great tool
mhm.
for like me mentally, although unfortunately it doesn't solve all my problems.
Dang.
I know. It is a great tool. So I'm like, I want to do that. I want to provide like inspiration for people to be like, okay, I can do this. Like, I want to learn how to do this. This looks nothing like what I thought quilting would look like, you
Mhm.
know? And so I think
Yeah.
it's thing that's like so important to me is like, I want people to just do it. Just start quilting. I don't care if I started on a $200 machine, you
Yeah.
don't have to have anything fancy, anything special. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. I'm the same. I'm like, if somehow I've inspired somebody to start quilting in some way, like that's all we really hope for and to keep the keep the craft alive and let it evolve into what it's going to evolve into and but also give a voice to people to say, "Hey, this is an aspect of this community of people that probably could change for the better and let's work towards that as a group and not just let it die off because nobody cared enough about it to say, "Hey, this isn't going to work if we're going to carry this into the future." And also, yeah, to like let people know you don't have to spend a shit ton of money just to get into it. Like my machine, my little brother cost $100 and I
Yeah.
still sew on it today because it works. That's all that matters. If you
Yeah.
have a machine that works, that's all you need.
Yeah. And if you want to get fancy bougie stuff and you can do that, then I'm all for it too.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a huge Bernina fangirl, so I love Bernina so
yeah,
much. Like, I love
yeah.
it. I was able to buy it for myself, and if you can do it, no shame on you, go for it. But you
Mhm.
definitely do not need like thousands of dollars put into a machine to make something beautiful.
No, and there's not a moral value on that either. And I think some people can hold shame on themselves about like, oh, I can't spend that much money. Like, who cares? Like, you can still make beautiful stuff with thrifted fabrics or, clothing and a cheap machine and, a fleece blanket for batting if you can't afford the batting, or, it's like there's so many different ways like that you
Yeah.
can approach it and still make gorgeous quilts. And it doesn't have to be like everyone else. It doesn't have to be like the curated shit you see online.
Yeah. It almost sets like a bad, you know, precedence, like you have to be making stuff like this. Like, no. What's crazy to me is like when I always thought about thrifted fabrics, I was like, I don't know, like, could I really get something thrifted and make it nice? And then I started following Erin. Her Instagram is Seam Ripper Society. And
Mhm.
she does a lot of thrifting. And I
Yeah.
look at her stuff and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is absolutely gorgeous. Like, I would have never known that you're like able to go in and find the stuff you find. And
Mhm.
it says like amazing looking quilt that she blows me away every time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt about Amory Thompson. She's next gen quilting. Same
Yeah.
thing. She thrifts almost everything she sews with or finds it around the house or whatever. Like she'll buy fabric here and there, but mostly what she's made has come from like donated fabrics or thrifted finds or just shirts that she's cleaning out of her closet at home or just like random stuff, and she makes gorgeous things. I'm just like, what the heck? It just feels like I think I'm with you. I'm like, "Can I really, scour my husband's side of the closet and find enough things?" Because, like, I can tell you he's got way more clothes that he doesn't wear than he actually wears.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cut up my own clothes, ugh, but
But yeah, I'm like, I had no idea,
yeah.
I always had this like misconception in my head that it could never look how modern and like fun and fresh I would want it to look. But I
Mhm.
was like, man, I'm so wrong. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's so possible.
yeah,
So
and
I
that's the kind of fun stuff you want to be wrong about, like, yeah, please show me why I'm wrong. Please explain to me why my previously held belief is incorrect. Like, I'm open to it.
yes, it's all about learning. You know what I mean? Like I see people do stuff and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. Like I need to learn more about this. Like I just started learning how to foundation paper piece. And so I'm like obsessed. I knew I
Really?
was going to be obsessed. Yeah. Because the like precision that goes
Mm,
into foundation paper piece. And I knew I like mentally, I knew I would be like, okay, I'm liking this, the satisfaction of like ripping the paper off,
mhm.
learning it. Oh my gosh, my brain was hurting for
Yeah,
like days. But I'm like, at that point, I was like, I'm ready to learn something fun to kind of like revive my sojo, as they say. Cause
yeah.
I was feeling like super down after like the conversations I had had and like some of the responses I got. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I think it's time. And so now I've been doing some foundation paper piecing and I'm like, it's hard to learn at first, but then once you get it, you get it, you know?
Yeah.
And so now I'm just
I
sewing my little heart out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've tried it once and I made a clock face. Like Holly Clark has it as a free design
Yeah.
on her website, but and it was fun. I loved like planning the fabrics out and kind of making that. I still need to like actually finish it, but
Mhm.
um it was yeah. I had moments where I was like, "Why the fuck can I not sew this on here correctly?" My mom was like, I'm like, Shut up, Michelle."
Literally, I don't think I've ever used my seam ripper as much.
Oh, it was so bad. I was like, this paper is going to be literal dust by the time
Yeah.
I'm done sewing this one piece on."
It's weird because it feels very backwards. Like
Mm,
you're like sewing something on and you're like, wait a minute, is this the right way? Is this how I'm supposed to be doing this? Like,
mhm.
and then I was always forgetting to like trim where my seam allowance should have been. So then I was ending up with these like really thick pieces. So it was a challenge, but I really like it. So
Yeah, kinda like
yeah.
a puzzle in that way where you're, like, trying to solve it, and I love puzzling. I go crazy, like, my husband's like, "Oh, I can't talk to you, you're puzzling," and I'm like, "What?" It's like, you just, like, get into a whole different realm of, like,
No.
existence. I can't, like, talk to you when you're like this. I'm like, "Alright, bye."
Like, see you later.
Yeah, like, I'm busy puzzling. But
Yeah.
so I can see that aspect, and I do wanna try so, um, I also have mentioned this on here before, but, we have an Airbnb in our house, and,
Yeah.
like, we rent out our master suite, and it's the cozy quilt house, so there's, like, lots of quilty touches, and, um but I have some like foundation paper pieced blocks I want to make to frame for the room because I have a
Yeah.
couple in there right now, but they're ones that my friend made and they're technically hot pads, like an avocado and a cat, and they're so cute. But I'm like, I need to make my own so I can have those back because I never get to look at them. But I'm just
Yeah.
like so scared to mess it up.
It's I mean, I was making mistakes. I mean, I still do. Like, I'm not gonna fool you or fool myself thinking I'm like a master at FPP after a couple weeks, but it's hard and once you kind of get into a rhythm, it helps, but
Mhm.
I'm still seam ripping over here. I'm like, oh shit, this is not the right direction.
Yeah.
I'll sew it on like the opposite way where it's not folding over the direction I need it to be.
Yeah. That's
So
what I kept doing with the clock face. I was like, "Oh my god damn it." I was like freaking it took me so long. I'm like, "I'm just making a circle. What the hell?"
literally, I'm not even kidding when I was saying like my head hurt. I was like, I literally have a headache from
Yeah.
like trying this over and over again until it makes sense because it was not making sense for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it is one of those things where everybody's like, "It's so easy." I'm like, "For you, like, I don't know why my brain doesn't work like that, but I mean, I'm sure it can." I'm not trying to be one of those people that's like, "I could never."
Yeah.
'Cause That's I hate
You
when
could.
people say
It's
that.
just
Yeah.
there's time, a lot of time you have to put into getting to learn it and a lot of YouTube video watching and all that kind of stuff to like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I do want to make those cute blocks. I have like a diamond and what was the other one? I can't remember. I just remember the diamond one for sure that I was like, "Oh, that would be so cute because the room has all like blues and grays." And so if I made like some
Oh,
cute
that would
diamonds to hang around. I
yeah.
don't know. Anyway,
You should do it.
yeah, I
Give
will.
it another shot. And if you have any questions, you can message me and I'll try.
Okay.
I'll try. I'm not an expert, but I can definitely try to help.
Yeah. I'll be like, "Help me, Emily. I'm lost."
I've been telling everyone, I'm like, do it. I'm like, do FPP. It's so fun, And I'm like, if you have problems, just message me. Like, I'll literally FaceTime you, whatever. Like, I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I just
Yeah.
think it's fun. I want other people to experience that too. It's
Yeah.
just different than your traditional piecing. So
Yeah. Well, and I think like you, I want that precision. So I think I would ultimately love it if I just tried it. But I just, yeah, haven't really taken the time to push myself to try it and figure it out. But I definitely like my friend Miranda, she made a pillow for me and she did an FPP hummingbird on the front of it. And it's so cute. And it's on the bed in the Airbnb because it's like the only place it's safe in my house. But uh it's so beautiful, and yeah, the points are perfect, and it's just gorgeous, and every time I see it, I'm like, "I need to make something like that," and then, yeah, I'm just chicken out, but I need to, like, take my own advice and just try it, just figure it out, and if I
yeah,
end up hating it, I don't ever have to do it again.
yeah. Or
But
maybe you can come back to it one day and you're like, okay, I now have the time to like spend learning this and spend it making mistakes because it's going to happen. And
yeah,
because I knew I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I kept saying to myself, like, I'm seeing all these amazing FPP things. I was like, but I'm not mentally ready. And then I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm ready.
yeah,
So
that's good, yeah, and I think when you do it in your own time and it feels right for you, then I think kinda things will just come together for you instead of feeling forced, like, "Oh, I have to make this because this other person made it." It's like,
yeah,
yeah, as long as you're staying true to yourself, then it usually works out, right?
definitely. Yeah. So it's been really fun, which
That's
is why I'm
awesome.
like telling everybody, I'm like, you need to just do it.
Yeah. Have you been sharing it on your social?
Mhm.
Okay, good. I was like, I think I've seen some stuff, but I just it all kinda, like, blends together sometimes if I'm, like, not really focused on, like, looking at somebody specifically, so
Yeah, I started out making like a standard star to just learn because I
mhm.
was like, I don't want to jump into like a full-fledged project and then be freaking out that I'm wasting fabric. So I was like, just gonna use scraps
Yeah,
and I'm making these stars until like I kind of get it. And so once I kind of worked through like the smaller kinks, I made two wall banners. I
okay.
Sounds supposed to hang them up for me, so we'll see. But they were like my first official FPP project, and like there's definitely some mistakes, but overall they look really, really great. And I'm like so proud of them. And now I'm working on the Atomic Starburst quilt by Violet Craft. And she has like it's like kind of like mid-century modern type stars. So they're like
Mhm.
long and pointy. So that's what I've been working on because I have to make like a lot of those for
Yeah,
the
I was
quilt
gonna say there's a
now.
lot on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm working on now, and it's gonna be with, some Alice in Wonderland fabric. There's a new collection that came out from Riley Blake,
Mhm.
and I was like, "I need this in my life." So, I was
Yeah.
like, "It's gonna be perfect to, like, fussy cut the big diamonds and
Mhm.
have that fabric stand out." So, I'm super excited.
That'll be awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
my mom and I, because like I was obsessed with Sleeping Beauty. I mean, all the
Aw,
Disney movies and stuff, but when I was little, I was obsessed with Sleeping Beauty. So when that line came out, what, last year, 2 years ago? Anyway, we like ran to the quilt shop and bought everything they had, and we're making like we started our the Tessa quilt by Kitchen Table Quilting.
yeah,
Um And so we just have to like lay out the pieces because we have it all cut out and like all the stuff ready. We just have to like lay it out and then sew the rows together because it's like you make the rows, but then it's like kind of offset because you turn everything on point,
yeah.
like diagonally. So, um, anyway, but yeah, like very similar to that Riley Blake fairy tale. Oh my God.
Yes, I'm like, "It's so cute." I'll have to look that up because I don't know if I saw that.
It's called Little Briar Rose.
Okay. I'll have to look at it.
It's so cute. Oh my God. Like, I can't handle it. And so yeah, it's super fun. But yeah, the Alice in Wonderland one is so cute too. I'm like, what can I make with that? I'm like, I haven't even finished my Sleeping Beauty yet. Like, I need to calm down.
My issue is I'm always like, okay, wait, there's this fabric coming on. I feel like I'm like, I want to get it before it's
Uh-huh.
gone. Because I feel like I missed out on so much good fabric, like pre 2020. Because really, I would say really wasn't super into quilting until like 2021. So
Okay.
just like looking back, I'm like, oh, I missed so much cute stuff. So now I'm like, okay, if I really want this,
Mhm.
I probably buy more than I need to.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we all do. That's just it's a hazard of quilting. You just end up with so much fabric that you probably aren't going to use or don't really need, but like, okay. You know?
I'm preparing myself for retirement, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
have a lot of fabric for
exactly.
when I'm retired in like what, 30 years.
I mean, who knows? Maybe your sticker sales will just go through the roof or maybe you'll find some other aspect of it to make enough passive income that you can just be done when you want to be done.
Yeah, I would love for that to be a reality, but we'll see. I've been working on pattern writing.
Mm,
So I've finished my first quilt top for my pattern that I wrote, but the imposter syndrome is so real
oh, yeah.
because
I feel that.
I'm such a new quilter. So I'm like, who gave me the right to like step out here and start writing patterns, you know? And I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm doing this because I like it and because
Yeah.
I'm doing the process. So it's been very much like this internal battle of like, okay, I'm going to release it. I'm just going to do it. And then I'm like, I don't think so. So I'm still like fighting with myself. I'm like, should I just do it? And then I'm like going back and forth.
Yeah. I think you should just do it. I mean, I know there's like the idea that, everybody and their dog is designing quilts right now, but
Yeah.
honestly, if you have a design in mind and you make it and you love it and you think other people are going to love it too, like honestly, what does it hurt to share it? It
Yeah.
hurts nothing. There's like so many different styles and so many different, you know, perspectives out there that every single person could design their own quilt and like everything would be different. You know what I'm saying? So like you're you putting your designs out there and your aesthetic out there is going to speak to someone.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe it doesn't stay something that you do, or maybe it is, and it's not like a super, you're not releasing several a year. Maybe it's just like one a year or something, whatever, works for you. But
Yeah.
I think if you, again, if you go back to what we were saying before, if you find joy in it and it makes you happy and it feels good to do, then I say just do it.
Yeah. That's like what I've kind of been telling myself. I'm like, as long as I'm still finding that joy and going through this process, like I should just keep going for it.
Mhm.
It's definitely it's hard.
Yeah. No,
It's
I've
hard. It's just like there's so many good designs out there already. And I'm like, I just don't know if like what I'm contributing would be like unique enough or something that someone would like enough. There's a lot and I'm like not expecting to be able to quit my job because I'm writing quilt patterns either. I think that's like I want to be realistic and knowing that like, I wouldn't make a ton of money off of probably pattern sales. And I think that's okay.
yeah.
But if I'm having fun, I think I just need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, just test the waters and see how it goes, and if it's underwhelming or if it's, I'm sure it won't be, but,
Yeah.
like, you get the option to back out at any time and give yourself the space to just try it, and like I always say, fuck around and find out.
That's perfect.
And,
Yeah,
like, the more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out, and it's, if you never fuck around, then you'll never find out, so
yeah. It's true because I could go through this process and be like, okay, I actually really love this. Like the whole designing process and actually making my quilt top was so fun. And so
yeah.
now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I need to like sit down and write this. But I'm like just in this internal battle of like, should I really do this or should I just be a quilter and just, make things?
Mhm.
So
But I think at any time too, if you love it for a while and decide that you don't love it, in a few months or a few years, whatever, then you can always say, I'm done now. And it's okay.
yeah,
Like, there's nothing saying that you have to, just because you do something once or twice or even 10 times, that you have to keep doing it forever.
yeah.
That's the greatness about humans and getting to make our own decisions.
No, you're totally right. Like if I do it for a little bit, it works, or if not, I could try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I just said I was like, had to back out of testing patterns, but I mean, you can send it my way. If once you write it, I'll edit, I'll help you. I don't know.
Honestly, like everyone that I've talked to has been so supportive about it. So I'm like, I'm just being such a big baby over here.
It's
I'm like,
scary.
it is,
It's
but everyone's been like, they're like, yeah, I'll look at it, I'll test it for you, like whatever you
Mhm.
need to do. And I'm like, I'm so grateful to
Yeah.
have like people around me that support me and want to help. And I
Yeah.
think probably the best thing to come out of quilting for me is to make these friendships and connections and just
Mhm.
have people in your corner, like ready to help you. And
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I've like asked my friends, like, what does this mean in a pattern? Or can you help me with this scant, seam or whatever it
Mhm.
may be? Like, if something just doesn't make sense, like I have this small community that I can be like, okay, I know exactly who to ask. I'm going to DM them. And then
Yeah.
if I don't know, I'll post something on my stories and I'll normally get like some really great responses. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so helpful to have that and to be able to ask questions, but also, like, have so much backup and support of people saying, like, "No, we're your ride or die. Like, we will support you in this," and, like, hopefully be honest with you at the same time as far as, like, if they thought something was a bad idea or that you're doing something crazy, like, that they would maybe talk you off the ledge, but,
yeah.
like, that's I mean, yeah, I have that too with my besties, like, if we're always sending each other pictures, like, "I'm at the shop. Does this go together? Am I crazy?" And it's like,
Yeah.
I can trust that they're gonna be like, "I don't know if you wanna put those together," or like, "Absolutely, if you don't make this quilt, we're gonna disown you." It's like
Even just help with like picking out a panto or picking a binding. Sometimes you're just like totally torn and to
mm,
just be like, okay, guys, which one
mhm.
I right now? And it's
Yeah,
nice to be able to like have someone else's feedback. And then you can kind of be like, okay, yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. Like, I'm gonna go that route.
yeah, for sure, it's so nice to have that, and, like, even if they're not, you know, local to you, it's like, at least if you have somebody you can text or DM, it's, like, so nice,
Yeah,
and
because I'm so jealous that you have like in life, real life, I don't want to say real life friends, but like in-person friends. I feel like
Mhm.
all my connections that I've made have been like, of course, everyone lives like across the country or hours and hours away from me. I'm like, man, I wish I could have like a little like closer community where we could get together in person.
Yeah.
I'm very jealous that you have that. I think it's awesome to just be able to like get together just so,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's like intimate.
It's super fun. Like, that's what we did for my birthday. We did it for Jen's birthday. Like, we don't do it for every single birthday, but occasionally it's like, especially if we haven't had a time where we've been able to get together and sew, then it's like, okay, that's what I want. I just want to sit and sew with my besties and like no pressure to like get anything done per se or whatever, but just like have time that I'm specifically setting aside to just do the thing I love to do with the people I love the most. And like, it's super
Oh,
fun.
that's like the dream, right? That's like,
Yeah.
you know, I recently, my sister started to quilt, but she lives like 4 hours away from me. So it still isn't like super close, but we probably like FaceTime every night while we're stuck.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's like so nice. And I'm so excited that she's shown interest in this. I hope she sticks with it because
is she?
I'm like, I need like a FaceTime buddy, to like quilt with. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Heck yeah. Is she younger or older than you?
She's older than me. I think I have like a huge age gap between me and my sisters. So I think she's about 12 years older than me.
Okay, I'm 15 years older than my sister, so
Okay. Yeah. I have an older sister too. She's the middle sister. So I
okay.
think it's like 13 years between my other sister. They were pretty close. I was the random.
The little baby. I know my sister was like me and my one brother were only a year apart, and then my other brother is 10 years younger, and then my sister's 15 years younger. So there was like, but my mom and dad had me and Jeremy like
Back
when
to
they
back.
like back to back. They were like in my mom was in high school when she had me, and then a year out of high school when she had Jeremy. And then she was like, I can't be an empty nester when I'm like 35. This is crazy. So then I think Ben, my youngest brother, is the only one that was actually planned out of all of us. So I'm like, Mom and Dad wanted you. So you're the lucky one. He's like, I know. I'm like, oh, jerk.
See, I feel like that's how I am because my mom always tells me, she's like, you're the only planned one because she had me so much later in life to
Mhm.
whereas like I think she had my sister when she was 18. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was pretty normal back then.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, it's just funny because there is such a gap. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how to be like a sister because I feel like I'm such a mom. Like, my role because I took care of these kids. Like I babysat them all the time. I fed them, I bathed them, I changed their diapers. Like I did like just as much as my mom almost sometimes. Like I know not as much. So don't get me wrong. I'm not like kidding myself here, but like my role was a caretaker in these kids' lives. I wasn't just like with Jeremy, like I don't have any of those feelings. Like we were so close that, you know, it's not the same, but with Ben and Natalie, I'm like, I don't know how to be a sister. Like
It's funny because I think my sisters probably very much feel the same way. Cause like I was with my mom worked a full-time job, so did my dad. So, I was with my sisters all the time
Mhm.
and they were constantly taking care of me, feeding me, whatever it might be. Like, they very much had that like almost mom role. So I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes they'll talk to me and I'm like, you're not my mother, right? Like,
I know. I
but it's
know.
all out of love. So I get it, but
I know. And I told my sister too. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Sometimes I say things and I just hear mom like coming out of my mouth. Like I am my mother. It's like
isn't that so scary?
I'm like, "Shit, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to mother you. Like I
Yeah.
don't know how to interact otherwise." And it makes me feel so terrible. And I'm like, I need to work on that. But I mean, we still talk, we're close. It's not like a bad thing. It's just I think in my head more than anything, I feel like I swear I'm not trying to be your mom.
It's more like coming from a protective place. You know what I mean? That's what
Yeah.
I've always felt like. I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, you don't have to worry, that
Yeah.
type. But it's very funny because me and my sister will talk and we'll like say something or do something and we'll both kind of like look at each other and
Mhm.
we're like, that's exactly what mom would do. And then we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
I know. I know my sister will be like, "Okay, Michelle." I'm like, "Excuse you." No, not that it's a bad thing. It's just funny because it's like, "Oh yeah, yep, that's exactly what mom says all the time. So you're welcome."
Or
And
even just, like, mannerisms sometimes we'll do something and we'll just be like, "Oh my god,
yeah.
I just did that." It's very
Well, and
funny.
I'm with my mom all the time, so it's like
That's true.
that's like the hazard of running a business with your mom is that you turn into her. I'll show up and we're wearing the same exact clothes. I'm like, "Oh my god.
It's so funny.
I have to go home and change. I'll be right back." I'm just kidding, but it's so
You're like, "Thank
funny.
goodness we're working from your home because"
I know. We're like at a shop, if we owned a shop and we're just like matching, it would be ridiculous. I would be like, "No, this cannot happen."
we just have to be like, "This is the uniform for
This is
today."
just we just have to wear it every day so that people aren't like, "Why do you always match?"
It's funny because like, I'll go home and I'll, like, steal some of my mom's stuff, and I'm like, "This is cute. Where did she get this from?" And I'm like, "I'm taking this home with me."
Yeah. Yeah. My mom's like, "I'm getting rid of some clothes. Do you want to go through 'em?" I'm like, "Heck yes, I do." Because she buys good stuff. So I'm always like, I want this. I want this. I want this." Like,
Exactly. I'm like, "Okay," I was like, "I'm taking this," like, she had this, like, fleece button up, and I'm almost like, "I need this." I was like, "I'm way colder than you are, like, you're not even gonna use this. Like, I'll graciously take it from you."
you're like, I'm helping you out.
Yeah, I was like, Your closets are full, you probably can't even fit this in here, like, let me just take it off your hands,
Mhm.
I'll take it."
Yeah. It's like never stops, I think, you know? It's like one day you just start taking your mom's stuff and then it just doesn't stop, like, ever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fine. I mean,
You start shopping at Costco and Sam's for clothes.
I'm like, "I got this awesome sweatshirt at Costco," and then I'm like, "Who am I? Oh my god."
I know, literally, I don't know, I'm like, "This some of the stuff here is good,"
I know. It really is. I'm here for it.
like, my middle-aged.
I mean, kinda, right? We're in our late 30s. Well, you're going to be 35, but I'm already 37, so I'm well past my mid.
Yeah, I don't know, it's crazy. I feel like I feel like the mindset that I have, it doesn't feel like I'm going to be 35, you know?
Yeah. I know. I was like, "Wait, I'm 37?" Like, it just feels so weird, and I think part of that for me too is because I'm around my parents so much and, like, I feel like a kid when I'm around them so much that it's hard to remember, like, "Oh, I'm, like, inch into 40. I'm a grown up. I
Isn't
can do
that
whatever I want."
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So
It's weird to think about, you know?
mhm. Yeah. It's fine though, like, would I'd rather have that and think I'm younger than I actually am than feel like I'm already 60 when I'm not even there yet, it's like,
I mean, when I'm piecing my backing together, I very much feel like I might be mid-60s,
well, yeah,
but mentally, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there is a line for certain things I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm old," but then other things I'm like, 12. So, what are you gonna do?
I think it's a good thing to have,
Yeah,
like, a young mindset, but
yeah. Well, I think too that's like that's what kinda keeps, I think, when you have a hobby or you have a craft like quilting, that younger mindset, I think, keeps it fresh because 'cause you're looking for new things to do, and if you keep that perspective and that outlook of like, "No, I'm young, I've got so much time," like, you can
yeah.
keep your skills alive and keep everything fresh and moving forward instead of getting stuck in a rut of like, "I only make this kinda quilt now." It's like,
Yeah.
"What?"
So funny because I was just thinking, like, am I gonna be like a 60-year-old woman, like still obsessed with Ruby Star and like using like all these bright fabrics? Or like, am I gonna eventually transition into like wanting to use more traditional
Mhm.
fabrics? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
only time will tell. But I
Yeah.
think it's interesting to think about, you know?
Mhm. I know, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, "Am I gonna, like, start turning into the quilter that I don't wanna be just because of age?" But I'm like, "There's no way," because I choose to like, keep an open mind to things, but also, like, I
Yeah.
like what I like, and I think as long as you keep embracing that part of it and don't feel like you have to like, "Oh, I'm older now, I better tone down my choices." Like, "Mm-mm, fuck that. I'm gonna just keep picking what I like to look at," and I mean, I will die sewing Ruby Star fabric. Like, as long as they make it, I'm gonna use it because I cannot get enough ever.
It's so cute. I was
Mhm,
talking to my friend, like, just because me and my one friend, our styles are just so different. Like, hers are very like, they're modern, but they're very like clean, you
mhm.
know, they're like very like neutral tones. And I'm like, mine looks like a unicorn threw up, and like that's what came out, and I love it. But
Yeah.
I'm but I look around my house and I'm like, everything is like white in my house. So like my quilts just like they look so odd because it's like here's a big rainbow quilt, you know?
Mhm.
But I love it. I think
Yeah.
it keeps it fun and interesting for me mentally as I'm sewing. Like I recently made my sister a two-tone quilt, and it was like a cream and then like a tan.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
Process of sewing it, I was so bored. I'm like, this is so mentally like uninteresting for me. And it was funny because I'm like, color means so much to me. And I didn't even realize how
Mhm.
much until I started making that quilt.
Yeah. Yeah. I've, like, worked with solids for, like, client quilts, and but and that same, like, frame of reference, like, they were colorful, like, it was like, I made the Mountain Valley quilt, um, for a client, but she wanted, like, pinks and purples, and
Ooh.
so it was real freaking cute, like, it's still to this day is one of my most favorite quilts I've ever made, and it's on the Sweet Pea feed, so if anybody wants to see it, they can go dig around on Sweet Pea Design Company, um, Insta, but, um and I'm like, "God, I wanna use solids so bad," and I was thinking about, I wanna make a more modern, like, solids quilt for my house because like you, I all of my quilts are bright, Tula, Ruby Star, rifle paper, tons of color, art gallery, everything is super colorful, and I love color, and I want to pull all the things I love together, and it may not match specifically, but like, one of the best compliments I've ever had is, like, from an Airbnb guest, and she was like, "Are you an interior decorator or something?" And I was like,
That's
"No."
the best compliment.
She's like, "Honestly," she's like, "It just looks exactly how I would want my house to look in here."
Oh,
I was like, "Oh my god, like, you're gonna make me cry."
yeah.
And she was like, how do you pick?" I'm like, "I literally just choose things I like." I don't know, like. And I think it's the same with quilting. Like, if you just pick the stuff you like, you're always gonna love your quilts, and even if they're not perfect, like, it's not gonna matter because you're gonna love looking at the fabric, and you're gonna feel good that you chose it because you like it and not because you felt pressure to be like, "Oh, I need to convert to making solids because that's, like, the trend right now." I mean, I might one day because I do think they're beautiful, but for me, like, I've always been an obnoxious print kind of person. Even as a kid, I remember just, like, mixing and matching, like, my clothes and outfits, and my mom would be like, "That doesn't go," and I'm like, "Yes, it does. I like
Like,
it."
yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny because, like, when I first started quilting, I was like, I only want solids. Like,
Mm,
I just felt like prints were so intimidating to me because I was like, I don't know how to like incorporate this
mm,
and make it look like cohesive. So like now I'm like fully venturing into more patterns and stuff like that, which I'm excited about because I feel like just adds this like additional fun element to your quilt.
yeah,
Where it's not
yeah.
just pink, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, and it gives it even more personality, like, a good pantograph on a quilt made with solids can be so gorgeous, and,
Yeah.
like we were saying, it can give it a personality that you're just like, "Oh my god, it's perfect," and but sometimes just, like, including, like, just the right print or, like, just the right combination of prints can make a quilt just sing, and you're like, "This is it. This is what I wanted. This is what I was trying to communicate with this piece of art." Like.
No, it's so true. Like I've I bought so much stuff that was patterned, and
Mhm.
it's just like kind of sitting here and I'm like, I need I need to just find the right pattern to make this work. And
Mhm,
sometimes it's just a matter of like finding that and matching it up with what you're looking for. You know,
mhm.
like solids go with everything,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, some people use prints and I'm like, that looks so amazing. I never would have thought to do it that way.
Mm,
You know, so sometimes it's just like I need to just step out of like my box, my comfort zone and like go for it, you know?
yeah, yeah, and as long as you love the fabric,
Yeah. You
it's
can't go
gonna
wrong.
be yeah, exactly. I literally just sewed a bunch of fat quarters together at one point because I didn't wanna cut them up. It's like the Tula Pink All Stars, the re-release when she, like, recolored everything,
Yeah.
and I didn't wanna cut them up, so I just sewed them together. It's
I
like
mean, it works.
so, I mean, it can be as simple as that, is like, I just loved the fabric so much, and I didn't wanna try to fussy cut all the animals or try to figure out a pattern to do that with, and I was just like, "Screw it, I'm just sewing these things together. I'm making a giant crazy quilt, and that's all that's it. That's the end of it."
Awesome though. Because sometimes like you just it depends on how big the print is. You're like, there's no way I could take this and make it like fussy cut it to fit, you know,
Right, right,
unless
or even just the fact that then there's, like, all that wasted fabric around it that you're like, "What do I do with this now?" Because if it doesn't fit the specifications of the fabric or the pattern that you're trying to make with that fabric, it's like, I don't wanna waste all that either because, I mean, that's some valuable shit.
it's crazy how much stuff resells for, especially out of print stuff. I'm like,
Mhm,
I try not to go down that hole too much because I
mhm,
love to collect things. So I'm like, I need to like pump the brakes and not get too wild because especially some of the Tula stuff,
mhm.
that stuff goes for crazy money.
I know. But so I'm glad I got it when I did because I looked online, like, a few weeks ago when I was putting it together because 'cause I'm like, "I wonder how much it would be to get one of these as, like, the binding," and I was like, "Just kidding." The print was, like, they were selling a fat quarter for, like, $100, and I was like, "Oh, okay." It was a joke. I was just kidding, guys.
Like, actually,
Uh,
yeah.
I'm gonna just not and say I didn't, so
Well, it's tough when you like find stuff that wasn't available when you or not available now. Like,
Mhm,
especially for me, I like look at stuff and I'm like, "Ugh, wish I would have had the opportunity to buy that retail because if I would ever buy it for like some crazy price like that, it's hard to cut into that fabric and then use it, you know?
mhm. It's hard enough to cut into it in the first place when you buy it normal price, but then to have spent $100 or hundreds of dollars on, you know, resale fabric, it's like, ugh, now I have to like, I can't cut it now, especially.
You're like, now it's too sacred, it's too pretty to cut. Like,
Mhm.
I need to just hold on to it forever. But then,
Yeah.
and a part of me is like, I can't do that. I need to use it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I just sewed those suckers together and, like, I have plans for I found like, it was months ago, but I was digging through I had, like, these big plastic drawers that just had, like, because I used to crochet. That was, like, my thing before I found quilting, and now
Yeah.
I hardly ever crochet. So, anyway, I was just, like, cleaning out the drawers because it used to hold all my yarn and all my, like, crochet supplies, and I had stashed some Tula in there that I completely forgot about. I had, like, a layer cake of Zuma. I had a fat quarter bundle of the original, um, the De La Luna sisters. What's that one called? Nightshade? No.
Yeah. I know what one you're talking about
Yeah.
though.
Anyway, so I had some of that, and then that's when I found the All-Stars. I was like, "Oh my god, what am I like, what
Like,
am I
what a
doing?"
genius. You're
Yeah,
like, "Thank you for stashing these."
I had a jelly roll of Pinkerville. I had a layer cake of Pinkerville, and I was like, "Okay, okay."
Yeah.
So, I do have plans for all of it, which is I'm gonna I have a pattern and the background and everything ready to go for the Pinkerville jelly roll, so that'll be fun, but
Exciting.
it's
Yeah.
just
You gotta use the good stuff, you know?
yeah. Yeah. And like, quilting as my job and like you have a normal day job, like finding the time to actually like sit down and sew for yourself can be kind of tricky. And especially because I don't really have a space for it right now in my own house. Like I feel like the only sewing I do is for other people at this point. But
Yeah.
There is a near future point where I will have my sewing space here at home again, so that'll be nice, but
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, wait, I'm my own boss. I can, like, set aside time to just sew if I want to, and I can do it at my mom's house." Like, she wouldn't care if I'm like, "Can we just sew today?" She'd be like, "Yes, throw all the jobs out the window," you know?
Yeah, I feel like the way I've like tried to motivate myself is because sometimes I'm like, I'm not feeling it. And then I go like weeks, where I'm not sewing anything. So I always ask myself, like, tomorrow, if I look back on what I did today, am I going to be sad that I didn't sew?
Mhm.
Sometimes that answer is yes. And so I'll go sew. And sometimes the answer is no. And so I'll just hang out.
Yeah.
It works for me for the most part of like, okay, how am I gonna feel tomorrow about what I'm spending my time on doing today?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. It's like if you squeeze it in and you feel good about it, then awesome, but if it feels like a chore, then don't force yourself, like, that's a creativity killer, and who wants to waste time sitting around going, "Ugh, what am I even gonna do right now?" Like, don't do it. Do something else. Watch a
exactly.
TV show or play on your phone or hang out with your spouse or whatever, like,
Yeah.
there's
It's
lots of
it
other things.
yeah, sometimes it's just you can't do it every day because
Yeah.
you're gonna get that burnout feeling. So you
Mhm.
just have to ask yourself.
Well, I feel like I've taken up enough of your time today, but
Thank
thank
you.
you yeah, thank you for joining me. This has been really fun, and I hope everybody goes out and buys your stickers because 'cause they're so cute and checks out your website and follows you on Instagram, and so where can people find you?
I'm Peach and Honey Studio everywhere. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and my website is peachandhoneystudio.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and you better release that pattern soon because
I'm like, I'm ready to get it long arm. So I'm like, I need to start working on this pattern because
yeah,
mentally I'm like, okay, I've made my tester version of it. And so we'll see. Hopefully
okay.
coming soon.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thanks again so much, and hopefully we'll chat again really soon.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking me to come on here. I don't this has been like low key one of my goals for this year to be on a podcast.
Ah, yes.
So
Check
I
that
was
off.
so excited. I was like texting my friends. I was like, guess what? So I was like super excited, super grateful for you to invite me on here.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, I was really excited that you accepted. I was like, yes, because I just love talking to people that I feel inspired by and just pick your brains. And so, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.